Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me welcome Mr. Giancarlo, a fellow New Jerseyan, to the committee, and certainly thank you for your previous service. Today, 3.3 million private student loan borrowers owe an estimated $80 billion in loans that reference Libor. As lenders transition away from Libor, I'm concerned that the lack of protections for borrowers in private student loan contracts. Mr. Pizer, as lenders transition away from Libor, does the existing language in many private student loan contracts allow those private lenders to choose a replacement reference rate that is systematically higher than Libor, thereby increasing the borrower's interest rates?
Yes, it does, and that's one of our concerns.
So, how can Congress and regulators ensure that lenders choose a replacement rate that is fairest to the borrower?
Well, short of mandating a rate, the best thing Congress can do is to offer a safe harbor from litigation that will encourage investors to choose that particular rate. That eliminates the risk of litigation to them, which is costly and destabilizing. The end result will work for consumers. And as long as it's narrowly tailored and doesn't create an opportunity for other misconduct, we think a safe harbor is the best way to go for a SOFR.
In addition, as you know, the CFPB proposed rules in June of 2020 that would help facilitate the transition away from Libor. Those rules were supposed to go in effect back in March of 2021, but they still haven't been finalized. How important would it be for the CFPB to finish its guidance to private lenders as they transition away from Libor to ensure that borrowers aren't stuck permanently paying higher interest rates?
That's very important. The guidance can't be left to the last minute. Industry needs time to adapt, and so we hope they'll release them as soon as possible.
Let me also ask you, most private student loan contracts include a mandatory arbitration provision, which says that borrowers cannot sue lenders if a problem comes up. Instead, borrowers have to undergo a one-sided backdoor arbitration process. Is it possible that a lender could game the transition away from Libor in a way that leads borrowers to face higher interest loans?
Yes, it's certainly possible, and the existence of the arbitration clauses and class waivers heightens that risk because it effectively eliminates consumers' recourse if there's misconduct.
And would a mandatory arbitration clause and a class action waiver, both which are common in private student loan contracts, leave the borrower with no meaningful path to challenge the lender's actions?
That's correct. Although industry characterizes arbitration as fair and neutral, in practice, we've seen evidence that it's put into the contracts to essentially eliminate the opportunity for consumers to challenge misconduct.
Well, our Republican colleagues successfully repealed the CFPB's arbitration rule. Student borrowers have little recourse if industry chooses to force them into higher reference rates. And it's up to Congress and the CFPB to ensure that student borrowers are not stuck paying higher interest rates as it goes. We're talking about $80 billion. These are young people who are trying to get underway in their careers, but between the debt and then the potential multiplier of the interest rates, the consequences are you have to delay maybe the purchase of your home, the delay of start of a family, the delay of being an entrepreneur. And that's why I raise these questions. Finally, as the committee discusses Libor, I think it's important to keep the average consumer in mind. Mr. Pizer, is the average consumer aware that their loan references the Libor rate?
No, I don't think so. It's a complicated issue, and people aren't aware of it.
Is the average consumer going to have a say in choosing their replacement rate?
No, none at all.
If the lender chooses a rate that causes a borrower's payment to become unaffordable, do many lenders offer flexible repayment options?
Unfortunately not.
Yeah. And these are all the consequences that I am fearful of on the consumer side of the equation, which is one of the reasons I appreciate your testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you.